Over the past couple of years, we've had a composting demonstration set up here at our studio gardens, which many of you may have seen on some of the various tours. Well, this summer, Alan, along with some of our volunteer ambassadors and some of our student employees, have set up a very rigid schedule to come up with a finished product that looks just like this and that's very usable. And Alan's joining me today to kind of tell us what went on with this demonstration. Now, Alan, first of all, tell us about the mix that you put in here, and you've kind of come up with an interesting recipe, I guess, on how to do that.
Well, Steve, what we did is I wanted to make it easy for the volunteers and our employees to do this. So we came up with 4 buckets here and color-coded. We start out with 3 grass, 1 leaves, and 1 activator. We alternate them with a grass, leaves, grass, activator, and grass. That way we're not piling it all in clumping it, and we layer it, which is what we're supposed to do in compost.
Initially. So the 3 red are the grass, and the black is a carbon, which is leaves in your case. So what does that ratio turn out to be pretty much?
75% nitrogen, or grass, and 25% carbon, or leaves.
Okay. Now in the past we've used commercial activator that you could buy. We've used our soil out here, which we found didn't work at all because it's heavy clay and it just balled up. What are you using as activator now?
Well, we were able to get some finished compost from years past, and we saved it for this demonstration, so we're just using already completed compost.
And that adds the microorganisms which help break down the other organic matter that we're putting in there. Now initially you're not adding any water, right?
We're adding no water unless there is a need. During the hot part of the summer when we were reaching 100 degrees, 100 plus degrees, we had to add a little bit of water to our compost piles. But if you keep a lid on it, you cut down the loss of water.
And the moisture comes from the grass clippings you're putting in there. But when you add water, you use a gallon.
A gallon container, and we base it upon the last amount that we added. If we add, we call this 1 unit. If we add 1 unit, we put in 1 gallon. If we added 2 units, we put in 2 gallons more.
Okay. Now, Alan, in addition to the mix, probably the most time-consuming part was what we're going to do here. Show us the other components of the demonstration.
Well, one is we started out taking temperatures randomly whenever we had a chance. And that wasn't giving us a good idea of what we were doing. So we decided to take temperatures on a daily basis, Monday through Sunday, and 7 days a week.
And you used a compost thermometer, which is a little bit longer, and you would, how far down would you stick it in to take the temperatures?
I'd stick it into the center of the stack, in the center this way as well as in depth-wise.
Okay.
You know, this thermometer will go almost all the way through, so we only stick it in about halfway to get to the center of the stack.
Now, in addition to taking temperature in the mix, we know that turning is a very important part, and as a general rule, we recommend turning at least on a weekly basis, but you guys decided to do it a little bit more often to see if it would help. So what did you use to turn it with?
Well, we used, on the ones that didn't tumble or roll, we used a winged turner, and what this does is as you push it into the stack, the wings fold up, lets you slide it down easier, and as you pull it out, the wings open up, and you lift the bottom layer up to the top, and you mix it. And we did it thoroughly where we started seeing some of the bottom already composting material coming up to the top.
Okay.
It's about 10 to 15 times per container.
So very time consuming as far as...
It only took us about 35 to 45 minutes to do all 15 composters out here.
Well, let's go look at some of these now and find out what the end results were.
Okay.
Well, Alan, we don't have time to talk about each of the composters, but why don't we just point out some of the highlights of particular ones. Now, this is kind of the Cadillac of all of the ones on the demonstration. Tell us about it.
This is a Swisher composter. It's 2 bins, and it's solar-powered turning, and it has automatic turning system on it. But the thing that I found out is that with both bins filled up, it doesn't want to turn itself. And they've made adjustments. This is one of the earlier models.
So it gets too heavy and the belt slips in it.
That's right.
Okay. Now this one has turned out to be kind of one of your favorites just because of the simplicity of using it, isn't it?
Oh, it's just real easy to turn. You can slide a wheelbarrow underneath it to unload it. Has an aerating screen that you can screen a little bit of your compost out of. And it's just a really slick, it's again one of the more expensive ones out here.
And it's a Kemp composter, and you can adjust the air a little bit more, where over here you've told me this one turns, and it's developed here in Oklahoma, I guess. But what's happening on this one is too many air holes drying out?
That's why I feel is that there's too many air holes. I'm not able to get the heat with the same type of ratio. And we followed their recommendations too, and I'm still not able to get quite the heat out of it. But it's still a nice composter.
Now I noticed there's a hole under here where you can see some of the liquids running out, which they encourage to collect for compost tea, and you can see the stain, and it's at an angle where that runs out and drains a little bit more, so it doesn't hold nearly as much water, and that's one reason it's drying out, I guess.
That's right. And that makes an excellent plant fertilizer too.
Right. Now these are some that you turn a little bit differently, but you've ran into some problems. We've got a couple of those, don't we?
They're just real hard to turn. This one particularly doesn't have any holes in the bottom. We're going to drill a couple of holes in here to help it drain, because when it sets like this, all the water gathers down here at the bottom. And that's just something that you don't want, is a lot of moisture.
And even though it looks easy to turn, once you get it filled up again, it takes some effort to get it to spin, doesn't it?
It's just really tough too.
Now these are some that you use at compost turning tools, and this particular one is a ringer, but it's a thermal insulated. And why is that, Alan?
Well, that just helps hold the heat in there. Remember, the heat is the big key to making compost.
But it's insulated with styrofoam, right? Around the inside here.
And by insulating, you're just able to get that heat up a little higher and get a lot better composter. This is a very uniform compost. We haven't ran it through a shredder or anything. There's a little bit of clumps in there, but I feel that this is the best compost that we've gotten out of this trial so far.
And again, a little bit harder to turn it though, because you're using the tool. Now another one from Ringer that's probably the cheapest or least expensive as far as the actual purchasing price is this particular one here. Now we wanted to give you some data that we've selected this one because of the price, and we figure it runs anywhere from $25, $35, maybe $40. Now to start with though, it had a lid on it which the clips broke off, didn't they?
Yeah, just over time and wear they just broke off.
Now in this one, according to your information here, you put in about 35 cubic
feet. And a cubic foot is a little bit more than this red bucket down here. This bucket is about a bushel.
And that was initially to get it filled up?
Completely full. We filled it clear to the top, which is recommended. Is the more mass you have, the harder you can get the temperature.
Now each time it would shrink?
It'd shrink a little bit, and we'd add a little bit more material. This one went in and put 1.7 times. That means we almost filled it up 2 times completely from the initial.
Okay, so every time it would shrink, you would add more material. Now also, according to your information here, Alan, you tell me that the average temperature, daily temperature, was about 123 degrees Fahrenheit, which really it wasn't quite as hot as we would like for it to have been.
Yeah.
Now explain to me this graph quickly here.
Okay, what we've done here is we've grafted the days that we used it, and this is like the first day of September. And then we go to the 4th of October, which is just a few days ago. And it graphs the temperature and on a daily basis. And we turned it on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and that's what the T's represent. And the A is where we added material. And you can see when we added material, we got a peak of temperature after it has started to decline. Then it has declined as we turned it. What we see here, especially on the downward side, is as we turned it, it cooled off on us, and we kept turning it so frequently it didn't have enough time to build up any heat, so it just kept going down and down.
Plus the temperatures dropped here as well, outside air temperatures too. So really what we found is any of them you were able to get compost in right now.
That's exactly.
There's another one over here that you especially liked because you just basically got it from scraps, I guess.
Yeah, it's free. You can go by and pick up pallets from any place. It holds a lot of material if you have a lot of material coming out of your yard. We mow quite a bit out here and bag our clippings, which to keep it really neat and clean out here. And so we've able to fill it almost completely up.
And the reason you like it though too is because been able to put more volume in, so you've been able to generate more heat. Now Alan, I think if people have been paying attention on this segment, they've realized we've been talking about grass clippings and leaves for carbon, and those things don't come off the same time. let's go over now and show them your secret in getting those materials
Okay.
to work. Well, it looks like you've just used some, what, extra pallets to make a storage area?
Yeah, and we stored our leaves that we shredded up that we got about a year ago in some bags. And we just shredded up and stored them here and to use in our compost study.
Well, Alan, that's a good point, because shredding anything that's a little bit coarser or bigger will actually make it decompose faster. So you've just stored it, and when you ran out, I've noticed you have some grass clippings too, right?
Yeah, and these grass clippings were scalped off of dormant Bermuda grass, and so they're brown, and we're using that now as our carbon source. And we realized that grass green is our nitrogen source, but if it dries down, that's our carbon source.
Okay, so a good way to use excess and not haul it off to the landfill.
Exactly.
So really, I think with the demonstration, Alan, what we found out is if that same question we've talked about before, if you want compost fast or slow, if you want it fast, they may want to invest in some kind of a composter, and we found that any of them will make compost.
Exactly. And it all depends upon how much effort you want to put into it.
Right. Some of them were a little bit easier to turn, others maybe weren't, but they all came up with a finished product. And I guess you found out the soonest you could get it was in about, what?
6 weeks. Some of them went as long as 2 months.
Okay. Now, if you want it slow, you can just pile it up on the ground like we've done here with the leaves, and I've even collected some at the bottom that composted all by itself. You didn't turn it, you didn't add any nitrogen to it or anything.
It's the lazy man's way of doing it, and it
Okay.
made compost.
And
but it took about 4 months, 5 months to do it.
And that was after you put it in and shredded it up too. So again, really, you can get compost just about any way. Depends on how much work. And Alan, we appreciate all the hard work that you, the volunteers, and the students have put in on this. It really sheds a little bit better idea on how to compost.
Well, we appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank you, Steve.
again.